You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box, where you get the inside scoop on the steps action takers and decision makers take to align their purpose to their principles and achieve their goals in business and life. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. Each week, you'll hear from remarkable guests who have overcome challenges and obstacles to succeed in the face of adversity. By listening to their stories, you'll get practical tips, tools, and resources you can implement today to bust through your own internalized prisons of worry and doubt. And now, without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Well, welcome to this episode of the No Labels, No Limits podcast, a podcast all about helping action takers and decision makers like you align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and in life. Hi, I'm Sarah from Sarah Box Coaching and Consulting. I'm a change agent and best-selling author of The Changemaker Ripple Effect, a book about how one person's drive, purpose, and boldness can impact thousands. And I'm here to tell you that the life you want is possible with the right support, mindset, and strategy. Today, we're going to be joined by Melissa Haveman. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about Melissa. Melissa is an executive coach, author, certified trainer for Everything DISC, and she's an accredited facilitator for the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. Melissa just released her Delete the Doubt online program for writers and creatives. The program helps writers delete their doubt and fear and, most importantly, finish their creative projects. Now, some of you may already know Melissa as a featured speaker on the Assess for Success, Grow and Retain Top Talent in Nonprofits, where she teaches how Everything DISC work of leaders helps look beyond traditional explanation of who leaders are. So with all of that background and her breadth of experience and knowledge, let's welcome our guest, Melissa Haveman. Melissa, before we dive in and the audience gets to know you, I want to know, as does the audience, what's one non-negotiable ritual you do daily that keeps you heading in the direction of your big vision?
This is such a great question. And I think for me, it goes back to that idea of questioning. As coaches, we do that a lot anyway, but it's about being able to question whatever's coming up, and that's part of the Delete the Doubt program, but just questioning what I'm getting. Is the source good? Is it good? Am I responding in the best way? What can I do better? All of those questions really make up who I am.
So that's kind of how you live your life.
Yes.
In that questioning mode. So, before you became so adept at everything you do and teaching and writing and coaching and training, how did you get to be doing the work you're doing? What is your backstory, if you will?
Oh, goodness. I think I have a story that's probably like so many others where it's been an adventure, a little bit of a journey. It hasn't taken a linear path by any stretch of the imagination. I went into grad school in sociology and was anticipating finishing and working in academia. And I was one of the people who got to ABD status and didn't finish. And if you had told me that when I started, I would have said, oh, no, I'm going to finish and, it'll all be great. But I was one of those people. I ran out of funding and needed to work full time and just didn't quite ever get back to it. and then I worked freelance for a long period of time and ended up with an academic publisher as their director of content and then made the leap into coaching after I had some great experiences with coaching myself.
So you experienced coaching firsthand and then became a coach.
Yeah.
So what is, and I always like to ask this of people who are coaches, because one of the questions people will say when they reach out to have you coach them is, well, I can't afford it, and all that kind of stuff. And yet, I know for me, the most value I've gained as a coach is being coached.
Yes.
So I'm wondering how that experience was for you.
It was amazing. I think it was maybe one of the, probably not the first time, but it really, at least in the last decade or so, it was probably the first time where somebody really took me and just said, trust yourself, like you got this. And it was just such an amazing experience of learning how to do that. of how to look at whatever was going on and say, you know what, I can do this, or I have the ability to figure out what the path forward is. And I think up until that point, the title of the podcast, that no labels thing, I think so many of us do have those labels. And people think of us in a certain way, and then it kind of cascades from there. And coaching for me was just that experience to say, you know what, that label's not me. And I can do that, and I can do this in a way that makes sense for me.
That's a very freeing place to be.
Yes.
Yeah. I know. And I think that's the same thing for me as well. Or it's like, okay, I'm going to get coached, even if it's a coaching for a short period of time in a particular area.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't have to figure this out on my own. There's people who do this, who can help, who can look at me and go, oh, Sarah, this is all you need to do. Right. Or, oh, Sarah, this is all you need to do. But I mean,
yeah.
Well, but they're in your corner.
Yeah. And it's so often, you'll have those conversations, and then it will just be that one question that is something that it's just a way that I wouldn't have thought of it, or, just makes me think about it in a different way. And I'm like, oh, there's the answer. And that's what I have to do. And we're good. And I'm going.
I love it. Do you remember a time that someone, whether it was in a formal coaching or someone who mentored you, just said, whether it was a question or a statement, that to this day, you still go, I still remember that. And when I wonder something, that person's face, maybe not even their statement, pops up for you?
Yeah. And I don't know that it's one person, and I don't know that I could get to one statement. I think it's just more, I can remember various coaches that I've worked with along the way who, and it's funny, it's almost like I can just almost feel like that light bulb moment where I just like, oh, I have it. And just they're sort of, well, of course you have it. You knew, you have this. And it's just that ability to figure that out that you learn along the way, but that the coach kind of pushes you forward into a little bit faster than you would have done on your own.
The operative word being pushed. And I'm not, it's when you're in that place of being a little nervous or worried, it's like a push. And yet from the coaching side, it's an invitation.
Oh, it is. And it's, at least in my experience, those pushes they're definitely pushes. You're right on that. But they're always gentle, and they're always done with the best of intentions and the best, it's all about the client. It's all about helping them get to where they want to be. And so it is a push, but it's a nice push.
I like to say it's a loving push.
Right.
Well, because when you're not in it, if I were coaching you, I'm not in your emotional headspace, right? I'm not believing the stories you're telling about yourself. I'm just seeing you, and I kind of see you in all your glory. It's like, are you kidding me? You're totally got this. Yeah. So it's not a flip thing to say to somebody. It's like, you can see it, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice to have that and to know that's there.
Yeah.
So that's how you got to be doing the work you're doing.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your new course and Delete the Doubt and Fear. I think, specifically, let's start with that course and how it applies to creatives and writers. Yeah. And then let's talk about how it applies in a larger sense.
Yeah. So I came to that. It's really, if you would sum up the one thing, it was probably until I got to coaching, what was the one thing that I would change about myself if I could? And it was always, I wish I had more confidence. If I just had more confidence, so the world would magically become a happy place and I could achieve everything that I wanted to. And I had a couple of moments, and it was after coaching, and I had been through a couple of coaching experiences, and I got to a spot, and there were a few moments where I was showing something I had written to someone, and they would respond in this well-meaning way, but it was always like, Melissa, you just need to have more confidence. And in the back of my head, I was thinking, no, I don't. This is not good yet. And I knew it. And I knew that I needed to, if I could push it forward, and if I could question it, and if I wasn't satisfied with where I was at, I could make it into something great. And I think it was just those moments of having people just not get it for me, and they were very well meaning, and it wasn't anything on their part that was malicious, but it was just, coming to that realization that questioning was a good thing. And that so often in society we're kind of, the message that we're given is we just need to be confident. And yet doubt is something that's good for us at times. Not always, but there are certainly advantages to using it strategically. And so that's sort of the birth of where the course came from, is this really just moment in my head where I was just like, oh, you just don't get this. And then I was like, well, if I'm having this experience, other creatives are having it too. And the more that I talked to other creatives, that was true.
So talk a little bit more about how to use doubt strategically versus using it as procrastination.
Yeah. So I think that we give doubt a couple of different names. So in writing, there's this really interesting meme out there where it talks about the creative journey. And it starts out with, oh, this is awesome. And then it goes down to, okay, this has some problems. Oh, this isn't very good. I'm not very good. Oh, this might be fixable. This is awesome. And so it was that point at which it's really number two on that. Well, this has some problems and this is not very good. And those are really doubt. I mean, it's really that questioning process of, can I make this better? Is this, is there greater potential here? I can see that it's not very good. How do I make it better? And I think we do that in editing and things like that. But so often I find that once we get to that point, and I've done it so many times too, where you get to that point and it's just that straight drop into, I'm not very good. I can't do this. And so it's trying to accept that those first parts are going to hurt a little bit, but that if you use them, you're going to wind up with a better piece of writing or a better book or a better creative project. But then it's learning how to kind of stop it before it gets to the, oh, I'm bad stage.
So can you give a couple examples of how I might do that? You're actually bringing back to me many of the stages I was in when I wrote, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'm good. I'm done. I'm not going to send this in. No. And I clearly have blocked out that because I'm going, I can't remember. So talk a little bit about is that an internal practice that we go through to challenge that, or what are some of the tips for folks? Because it may apply to writing, it may apply to trying something different.
Yeah. So I think for me, it is all about the questioning. If you can, it's asking questions about whatever you're doing. So, and kind of taking stock is, can I make this better? Is there an idea that would work better here? If I'm writing, does this organization make sense? Does this, would this work better there? What if I switched it over here? And learning to use and ask those questions in ways that let you see the project in different ways and play around with it a little bit, and then figure out how it best fits. So sort of like putting a puzzle together a little bit. And then learning that when it starts to shift to the I language, you're often slipping into that self-doubt. So if it starts to become, I can't do this. I'm not a good writer. I'm not a writer because I don't write every day or anything like that. Then it's bumping it back up and shifting into using some of the strategies to get you back into creative doubt.
Tired of feeling stuck and ending with the same result? Want to know how Sarah can help you with one-on-one or organizational coaching? Then book your free discovery call at sarahbox.com/contact. Now, back to the show.
So one way for me then, or for anybody, to check where they are in that process is like how I'm even framing my questions, right?
Yeah.
The one I noticed about when you ask those questions too is they're very objective, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Does this outline flow? Is the content make sense? Could it be better this way, right? Those are things you could either look at yourself, or if you're stuck, ask someone to say, do you have suggestions, right? Because if I say to you, Melissa, do you think I'm a writer? That's subjective.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no good answer to that.
Right.
It's like that. Do I look good in this outfit? It's like, but I'm joking a little bit, but really the choice of words we ask our questions with reflect for me.
So
kind
important.
of where's my headspace in?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Am I looking for encouragement or really some help?
Yep.
So now let's just say I've kept going on my writing project. Where's the piece of actually finishing it? How do we get over that piece instead of saying,
Yeah.
oh, later?
Right. Yeah. It's funny because if you talk to writers, we'll talk a lot about procrastination. We'll talk a lot about writer's block and all of those things that stop you and stall you and keep you from finishing. And a lot of it, once you get down to it, is doubt. It's that I don't know if I can do this. And there's the fear of doing it, the fear of failure. And creative work is at its core, you have to risk rejection if you're going to create anything, because anything that we create in that artistic sphere is always subjective. And so someone's always going to love it and someone's always going to hate it. And so anytime you put something out there, you're always going to be risking rejection. And so that's a really hard thing for a lot of people to kind of get over. So yeah, I mean, in the course, we talk about different strategies. Once you know you're in that spot where you're starting to stall and you want to stop, and it's because it's doubt or it's fear. And then, there are a whole bunch of strategies, and it's really about, in typical coaching fashion, figuring out which strategies work for you. So I've included some that don't work for me at all. Some people do a lot of journaling, for example, and we'll write in journal in third person, and that kind of helps them bump over that doubt, something I can't do. I can't stick with it. But I use my character strengths a lot. Humor is a great one for me. I'm always, pulling that one out if something goes wrong. I'm like, oh, laugh about it and move on, type of thing. Or, just kind of pushing yourself to do that small action, that first step, just one thing that moves you forward. And then, typically you're already on that road. Once you take that first step, you kind of keep moving. And then you can just keep using those strategies to get to the end.
I love the concept of journaling, except when it comes to writing, I'm thinking, isn't that ironic? I can't write, but I could journal. Hello. That's one of those questions I ask myself. I think, okay, Sarah, what's really going on?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not having any trouble writing here.
Yep. Yep.
It sounds to me, Melissa, that, what you're talking about has even broader application.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking about the shifts. So for folks listening, if you're binge listening to this months from now, who knows what the world will be like. But right now, as we're recording it, it's March 2020, and people are working remote. Maybe it's for the first time. There's all kinds of change going on and worry. So this to me sounds like many of your takeaways would apply to either people who have their own businesses or leading other people and needing to make decisions. Do you see an application there?
Oh, I do. I use this all of the time in my business. I will joke about people that I need to go work my own program. Sometimes when I'm just feeling the doubt about something, and the same strategies that I used when I was leading teams, it's the same strategies that I use in my business. It's the same strategies that I use in my personal life. If I start to feel doubt, something there. So it is. It's a broader application. So many of those strategies work regardless of what you're working on.
So one of the things that you offered, is that if folks want to learn more about you, you've actually offered a kind of a giveaway you would give folks listening to this podcast. But before you talk about that, talk about your creatively centered business, because the dots won't all connect otherwise.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny for me to talk about this. I'm such a creative when I try to talk about this, because I have like little areas of things that I do. So part of it is I work with writers or aspiring writers, and we work with deleting the doubt, and we work with finding resilience, which is another thing that's really important right now. Is the conversations that I'm hearing on social media from all of my writer friends are just like, I can't write. Like, I have deadlines, but I can't write right now. There's just too much going on. And so it's about, finding a practice and finding what works for you and finding that resilience. So that's sort of the author piece, the writing piece that I do. And then I also work with teams and leaders with everything DISC and the 5 behaviors. And that can be, just a variety of things. I love team development that comes from my sociology background and studying group dynamics, and all of that just sort of flows into it, and facilitating and doing all of that. So yeah, and I do a little bit of. I'm trying to think of various focuses there: team development and remote professionals. I've worked remote for about 20 years. So it's funny to hear all of the new conversations about this, because it's something I've done for so long, and helping businesses kind of develop some remote policies and think through issues. How do you manage remote? That's something I think we haven't quite maybe got to, starting to see some of those conversations where it's like, oh yeah, this isn't quite as easy as maybe I thought it would be, or, how do you do that in a way that builds trust among teams and keeps productivity high and getting those results and things like that.
That's so valuable to remember, because I'm remote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked remote for a number of years as well, but now it's primarily, unless I'm on site doing retreats or trainings or, planning. But what's interesting with the team part of it, Melissa, is that your team is remote, but I also, depending on where you are, like, are you the leader of the team or a team member, people can be hesitant in reaching out because they don't want to bug you.
Yeah.
Bug in quotes, right? I don't want to bug Melissa. I know she's busy. And yet that whole piece about, okay, when are we going to talk? And please, reach out, because once you get that synergy going, it starts to flow better. But it's not as easy as being in an office shoulder to shoulder with someone where they can come by and say, hey, do you understand this? And they're showing you a document.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. You have to be so much more intentional about it. I think that's one of the things that I found, both working as a team member on various remote teams and leading remote teams, it's just that intentionality of communication. You have to make the time and the effort and make sure that it's happening, where, if you're in an office, it happens a little bit more naturally. Then, hey, we have to schedule a meeting and we have to do that in a non-scary way so that you all don't freak out that I'm, going to give you bad news or anything. And and figure out how to do that regularly and make it so that it's a productive time for everyone.
Yeah. I'm kind of excited. I mean, and I had my business meeting this morning. I said, I know it's annoying for people because I'm typically optimistic, right? It can be really crummy day and I'm going, well, there's a silver lining and I'll find it.
Yeah.
This really, as scared as folks are right now, and the challenges, we're all having to stretch and be a little uncomfortable. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? Because it gets us out of the status quo. And I do have the pleasure and privilege of being on the back end calls, people coming together saying, how do we respond? What's the best way to respond to help? So that's a bonus that I get that kind of conversation and information. But I also believe that when we're done stretching, that metaphorical rubber band is going to come back, but not as small as it used to be. And we will have new skills. And so when you talk about having to be more intentional, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that I'm intentional when I communicate. And that's a stretch for me, because I just think everybody should just be in my head and go, oh, of course. So working remote and having a remote team has made me stretch. But it makes you a stronger person, I think.
Yeah.
So how, you mentioned that folks who want to maybe check out the Delete the Doubt course, that you could provide a discount code for folks. Is that still something you can do?
I can do that.
How do our listeners get that?
So I can, why don't I put something on the website? And I'll put and I was thinking about that anyway. I have some fun virtual workshops that I'm going to be doing specifically for writers using DISC, which is kind of fun.
Oh, cool.
About this, of how you can build better characters and then how you can pitch better using DISC. So that's kind of a fun application of that probably nobody intended, but I think it works. So so
that's intriguing.
Yeah, because it's all about people, right? It's all about recognizing the styles and adapting your message to those styles.
Oh.
So,
that made me think of another idea too. Never mind. I will pitch my idea to you separately. Because when I pitch it, I want you to say, well, of course.
Yeah.
So you'll put a thing on your website. So if folks just go to your web address,
Yep.
It'll be on there.
Yep. I'll put it on the front page, so it'll be easy to find.
And you want to tell folks which web address we're going to?
Sure. It's www.creativelycentered.com.
Okay. And we'll put that in the hyperlinks to this podcast. But in case someone's listening and not anywhere where they're reading this, that way they'll have that. Yeah. Melissa, I want to thank you for being a guest. This is really exciting. I love the whole busting through doubt thing, because that's kind of I think those sometimes, especially the doubts we put on ourselves, are so, they're just not necessary.
Yep.
Because the world puts others on us.
Yeah.
So the less we can put on, the better. And I just love your humor and the way you approach things. So I think that's pretty exciting as well.
Yeah.
Cool. And I also want to thank you for having been an Assess for Success speaker, because the content you delivered was really great. So.
It's so much fun, and spurred me on to some fun workshops with Work of Leaders as well. So
nice.
I'm planning. So nice. So thanks for having me here and on the summit.
All right. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic vision coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. So please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Until next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.